You don't need to have a bad dictator. It could be a good dictator.
And this is a reason why I think this will be used by all countries out there.
So that's the problem with democracy. And this is why I think everybody should be having some Bitcoin just to protect themselves.
Bitcoin is a very conservative asset, if you realize what Bitcoin is.
The thing is, at the government level, the moment 2 or 3 realize that this could be the case, then everybody will have to buy.
What do we do when central banks buy Bitcoin?
So hello and welcome. My name is Igor. I'm the co-founder of Firefish. And in today's session on our Firefish channel, I have a really great privilege of welcoming 2 heavyweights in the Bitcoin space. First, let me welcome Roman Reher from Blocktrainer, who's the biggest German-speaking educator. Roman, welcome to the channel.
Hi, Igor. Thank you for being here.
And also, it's my great pleasure welcoming also Alberto Mera from Podcast Sobre Bitcoin, which is the largest Bitcoin-only focused channel for Spanish-speaking markets. Alberto, welcome.
Thank you. Nice pronunciation there. I wasn't too sure, but well done.
Trying my best with the Duolingo a little bit. Now, before we start with some of the questions that I have prepared, I always have this one specific question at the very beginning prepared for both of you. So the first question would be, if Bitcoin fails, what would be the reason? What do you think? Alberto, words to you.
That's the most difficult one for me. Yes. If Bitcoin fails, what would be the reason?
Yes.
Well, I think the one that I find the most trouble with is the use of the blockchain itself. The fact that most of the blocks are empty or very lowly used, and that this of course means lower fees, which potentially could lead to a situation in where we have to subsidize the production of blocks, and of course if you come to that situation, then the one doing the subsidizing may be influencing what goes into the blocks and what doesn't. So that to me is a concern. Of course, it's not really that big of a concern. I believe there are ways in which we can see this alleviated. Like for instance, I see a huge growth in home miners and lottery miners, and this could be something that implodes even further over the next 10-20 years, when this could start to be a problem. So I mean, of course, there are always solutions to the main problems I see, because otherwise I wouldn't be a hardcore Bitcoiner. I would have already moved on to something else. But for every situation that I see that could be problematic in the future, I come to a solution that could be potentially doable.
Brilliant. Roman, what about you?
I think the only reason for Bitcoin is not becoming successful is that we don't need Bitcoin anymore, because we have hard money from the state, or I don't know. So I don't think this will ever happen. But I think people will buy Bitcoin when they need Bitcoin, and they always need Bitcoin when they're in dependency to a state or to an institution. And since this is our largest problem, I think since we have money or we building societies, Bitcoin is the best solution for this. And so I'm pretty sure Bitcoin will be successful in the future. And I'm at Alberto's side. I think the fee problem is not a real problem in the end. For sure, if the blockchain is always empty, this might be a problem. But we have fairly 100 years for the subsidy to go to change this to the fee market. And one interesting thing I want to add is maybe to think about is people say, yeah, but the inflation rate is so low right now that the subsidy is not that important for the miners. But the other thing is, if Bitcoin is successful, people will buy Bitcoin and they never sell. So the Bitcoin which are at the market to buy or sell are very limited, especially to the last period, to the last subsidy period. And this leads to a situation where we see, I don't know, all 4 years, we double the price. And if we double the price all 4 years, the subsidy can be the half and the miners have the same amount of money. So in the end, I think maybe we have 100 years of doubling the price all 4 years. And so the free problem is not a real problem.
There's also, I would add something to that because there's also the fact that we don't know what the security budget has to be. So you don't know if you have to keep this amount of mining. I mean, it could be that you devote less energy to this and still is massively secure. So we don't know where the level is, and of course that depends.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. I actually like the idea, Roman, of the hard money created by the state, which sounds slightly like an utopia to me. But let's see what the future holds, right? We never know. Perfect. So let me maybe focus a little more on your particular communities. Roman, you're obviously very big in the DACH region, which is Germany, Switzerland, Austria. So how would you define the communities? We know that, for example, Germany is very famous for running a very high level of nodes in particular. But what is your take? What are the specifics of your DACH community?
Yeah, what I see on my channel is that the people are quite old. So they are older than 30 mostly. A lot of people are older than 50 or 60. And I think the reason is they are infected by inflation a lot. So they worked a lot of time and they lose their money and they need to store the money somewhere. These people are interested in good solutions. I think this is the reason why they come to Bitcoin. And when you are very young, I don't know, you start with your job and so on. It's the first time you get money, so you don't feel the inflation in this moment, but you feel it when you are responsible for your own rent and stuff you have to buy and so on. So I think, this is the reason why people which are older coming to Bitcoin. And the other part is people in Germany are, I think they are very straight and very conservative people. In the end, Bitcoin is a very conservative asset if you realize what Bitcoin is. So it's not that progressive as people think, right? So I mean, it's set to stone.
That's very true. Alberto, what about you? I mean, looking at, you're obviously operating in a slightly specific territory. You have Spain itself, which is obviously part of Europe, but also you have a big audience in Latin America, where you have multiple different countries with their own particular issues. We know, for example, that the stablecoin adoption in particular is very big in Latin America, due to most likely the economic issues that a lot of these countries go through. So how would you describe your communities?
Yeah, as you say, it varies a lot. And I think the fact that in Latin America they go to the stable coins, in this case to the dollar, is because I see Bitcoin as an asset that is at the top of the seed coins, also including like the fiat monies. So if you are in a country that has a very shitty currency, you will see the dollar as the main thing to go to, and then after the dollar maybe you go into Bitcoin. But your main goal is to go into the dollar. Whereas if you're in Spain and you are using the euro is a seed coin, of course, but it's not as shitty as many other coins. So if you are in the euro, for you it's like, okay, I could devote some of the money to Bitcoin. But of course the rationale is a bit different. Also because I think what brings people to Bitcoin is it could be one of two things. It could be that you have experienced inflation, hardcore inflation in the recent past, or it could be that you have an above average knowledge about economy and how things work, and then you're like, okay, maybe this makes sense, as something to protect my assets from devaluation. And of course, in Spain, you find maybe more of the latter. You find more people that haven't had an experience with inflation that has been really, really bad. Whereas in Germany, probably they still have this in mind. In Spain, I mean, Spain has been awful in the last 100 years. We had the civil war and all that. But inflation is not one of those episodes that they really feel that it was like the worst thing ever. But in Latin America, of course, this is the case. So That's why I think in Spain it's more you go into Bitcoin because well, you like the technology and you like the asset as what it could bring to to a portfolio, or what it could bring in a world where the valuation is something that happens every day. Whereas if you're in Latin America, you go to Bitcoin because you are just afraid of losing the value of your currency.
Mm-hmm. And maybe from the LATAM perspective, would you say that stablecoins are actually maybe like a middle step between the current situation or the fiat world and ultimately Bitcoin, or could we also argue that stablecoins potentially might be a competition potentially to Bitcoin? I mean, we've seen it, for example, in Salvador, where the country literally kind of made a big step and moved from the sort of fiat dollar kind of based economy directly to Bitcoin. I'm not saying obviously that the whole country is running on Bitcoin, but there's been a massive step. So how do you see this situation? I mean, I personally have the experience from Latin America that really stablecoins are the go-to sort of tool or asset for many people, especially the younger generation. So what's your view on this?
Well, I do think that stablecoins compete with Bitcoin because there is of course one aspect where Bitcoin is much better than having a stable coin, which is protecting the value in over time. So Bitcoin is good because you can move because you can protect your money at the value of your money over time, and also because you can do it you can move it through space. And in this second aspect, stable coins do compete because the moment you have stable coins, you can also move value through space with minimum problem. And this was something that wasn't available before the stable coins. Of course, you could move dollars, but it wasn't the same kind of fluidity that you get with stable coins. So at least in this aspect, stable coins do compete with Bitcoin. Of course, you wouldn't save money in stable coins because you wouldn't save money in dollars. You wouldn't keep all the money in dollars in your room, but you would use dollars to move them around. And if you can do this more easily, then you may do this with stablecoins instead of moving value with Bitcoin, which is of course one of the features that Bitcoin provides. So in this aspect, I think they compete.
Mm-hmm. And do you see similar pattern as what Roman mentioned, that it's usually the elder generation that is interested more in Bitcoin, considering really the fact that the inflation, until and unless you started earning some money and you have some savings and you start feeling the pressure of the inflation, then you start kind of considering alternative assets. So is this the case in your territory as well?
Well, I'd say that I'll differentiate between the techies, which are like younger and are like exploring with the technology and find anything that is new, very more interesting. Then these guys may find value in Bitcoin. But overall, I think that the majority of people that get into Bitcoin are people with already a career, with already some money saved, with already some understanding about finances. Because you don't really, I mean, at least in Spain, you don't use Bitcoin to protect yourself from the country or from the devaluation. So yeah, I don't think it's much different in this case Spain to to something like Germany.
Excellent. And then this brings me also to another question, which is, Roman, I don't think, or I believe so, that inflation was the reason why it clicked for you that Bitcoin is the right asset for long term. So what was your tipping point actually when you realized that Bitcoin, that's the thing?
I think it was a decentralization of the network, and to realize that this is the only truth we can create as humans, because all other information we create are they have we call it oracle problem. I think this is a word from the Bitcoin space, but for the people out there is to understand you have dependency to several institutions or states or so on all things we have. So imagine there's a history book, and you read the history. How can you prove that the history happened like it's standing in the book, right? So, and you can do this with everything. So how do you know that the gold price is the gold price when you don't know how many gold is out there? Or if you don't know if all the gold we trade all day is really backed by physical gold, because the most time we trade gold, it's just a digital information. Bitcoin, you can see how many Bitcoins are on exchanges. You can see if the Bitcoin ETFs, the spot ETFs from IBIT, for example, are backed, and if there are addresses where the Bitcoin are stored, and if there's only one ETF where you can say, yeah, these are the Bitcoin from the ETF. So you can prove this, and this is a huge advantage to all other assets out there, because you don't have to trust anyone. I want to say something to the stablecoins. Just one more thing to the if Bitcoin competes with the stablecoins. I think this is today the case because people need a solution right now. They have in some countries really tremendous inflation, and they don't know how to live their lives, and they can't think about saving money because they have literally no money. So what they need for the first moment is a money which is not that volatile like Bitcoin today. Maybe this will go in the future, but this is the case right now. But I think on the long run, Bitcoin is the asset which is underlying to all this stuff. And I want to bring in Michael Saylor's idea of his STC. Oh, no, what's a STRC, for example?
Digital Capital Integrator.
Yes. So he bring this asset and said, look, you buy this for $100 and I buy Bitcoin from this. So the market cap of my Bitcoin in the company will grow, and I try to have a Bitcoin yield on the stocks of my company. So all stocks represent more Bitcoin now. If this is the case and people realize Bitcoin will start to grow in the price, the market cap of the company will grow as well. So if he have more Bitcoin, he can print more of his stocks. So he imitate more stocks and can sell the stocks, and he can pay a dividend to the holder of the STRC. And he will play with the dividend percentage he pays. So if the STRC is above $100, he will only pay, 9% or 8% dividend per year.
But he can reduce it if it's over.
Yes, he can reduce and rise it, and so he can hold the price of $100. What if a stablecoin emittent is doing the same with a stablecoin and trying to hold $1 with this procedure? And he can only do this if he is backed by Bitcoin and use Bitcoin performance to create the possibility of having his stablecoin fixed. And this is a reason why I think this will, in the end, will be used by all countries out there, because they compete in fiat currencies with each other, and they need an asset to pay dividends that people trust the currency and want to hold the currency. So if you want as a US government that people use your stablecoins, you need to pay a dividend. If China does this with their central bank digital currency, then people may hold this currency instead of the dollar currencies or the dollar stablecoins. The problem right now is that Trump forbid this. So he said, yeah, here's a genius act, but the stablecoin emittents are not allowed to pay a dividend. But I'm pretty sure this will change in the future, because this is the best vehicle to pay a dividend and bring people back to the dollar. And you can only do this if this is backed by the best asset in the world. So I think Bitcoin will be more the power behind the fiat currencies in the future, and this will lead directly in some kind of Bitcoin standard, like we had the gold standard back then.
Yeah, it's funny because for anybody listening, I guess, or for many people listening, this may sound like pretty crazy, but I agree with Roman because I mean the more you study STRC and the more you see how this works, and the more you listen to how this thing is all planned, it does look this way. Actually, I have it very, very, very fresh because yesterday night I was finishing a video for this. So yeah, in this way, you could say also that stable coins with yield will compete, with something like STRC, because I mean the moment you have stable coins backed by the states and paying yield in this case, you will be competing with STRC be paying dividend based on Bitcoin. And then in this case, now you have the two of them competing. Like, okay, who is best? Do you think the fiat money is going to is going to win, or you think the Bitcoin money is going to win? And we will see in this case a very nice battle, which I think, of course, because of the mathematics behind it, it needs to go in the direction of Bitcoin, but it will take time for this to play out.
Yeah, and look at what Saylor did with this kind of stock, and imagine he now has more than 700,000 Bitcoin. So probably he's in the future the largest bank which imitates stablecoin. And look at Tether; they hold, I don't know, hundreds of thousand Bitcoin as well. Why do they do that? So I'm pretty sure the Genius Act was pretty genius, because what Trump did with that is he took the responsibility from the Fed. I mean, why is what's the official story for the Fed? So the Fed was funded because they said, oh, now we have the gold standard, and all dollars coming from several banks are in danger, because if a bank has a bank run, the dollars from this bank will be bankrupt. So, and this is a problem. So let's do a whole dollar system, and the Fed will save the banks which have bank runs. So this was the story. So, and now he said, yeah, here are the digital dollars. And you, Fed, you are not allowed to save Tether if they act like a I don't know, imposter. So he took the one and only reason for the Federal Reserve from the Federal Reserve and said, yeah, it's now like the start of the gold standard, of the first phase of the dollar. And did this with the digital time. So, and maybe these emittents will use Bitcoin then in the future to imitate their dollar derivatives or stablecoins.
So this is really very interesting, because that actually brings us to the other point or theme that I wanted to cover with you, gentlemen, and that's what happened in 1971, right? I think in the Bitcoin space, this is a well-known story. So maybe just for our listeners, if you could summarize briefly what happened in 1971 and why does it actually matter? Why should we care? Alberto, if you want to.
I love the briefly part, because well, I mean, there are so many things that you could go into this. Actually, as an anecdote, I don't want to go into this, but one of the unlikely effects of this, which is pretty crazy, but I was just listening to this guy talking about his book about the Cold War, and I was like, man, this fucking makes sense. Sorry, but it was like because you had the dollar at this value before Bretton Woods ended. So before 1971, just so everybody understands, in 1971 you stop with Bretton Woods, which means that then the currencies float between each other, and it's not like the system before where all the currencies have a value against the dollar, and then the dollar has the backing of the gold. So after the Bretton Woods, after 1971, currencies start to float against each other, which means they need to find a price, they need to find a value at where they are at stable. And what happens is, of course, that all the currencies get devalued immediately when they lose the link to gold. And one currency holding the most value, of course, was the dollar. So what happened is, because you devalued the dollar, a lot of money, all of this value that was in the dollar went outside of the dollar. And of course, where did it go? And it's funny because this guy was explaining the theory that this was in a way what helped China evolve in a way that no other country could do before, and it was because of the massive amount of capital running around in the world that was available, to finance the production and the growth of an industry as huge as that one. And it's just an anecdote, because what you said, briefly, is difficult because 1971 really changed everything. It changed a way of working between countries, a way of basically understanding how the money works, and everything changed thereafter. We had the growth of the euro dollar, which means, of course, dollars are more international. Then we go to a different system, which is the one that we are on at the moment, which is one that is backed by the treasuries. So it's backed. Everything is backed now, not by gold, but by the trust in the U.S. being able to always pay their bills and pay their loans and never default. And this is at the back of the system nowadays, because of course behind that there are like hundreds of trillions of dollars which are everywhere in the world. So everything changed, and then it went in phases. Of course, the treasuries grew a lot. Well, first the gold first grew a lot in value against dollar. Then the treasuries grew a lot in value because, of course, the US raised the interest rates a lot, and then the interest rates in the bonds in the US went to 20%, which meant everybody wanted these bonds. So all the money went from the gold to the treasuries, and in this way they built this treasury-backed economy, which is now at the end of 40 years of bond bull market, and is going to something else, because if the money leaves the bonds now, then what is it going to be back in the whole system? And this is the fight that we're in at the moment, where gold is revaluing, where the dollars are still there, the bonds are still there. But yeah, we've been in a new system since 1971 for, it was a lot of reasons, of course, but we've been in this new system, and what is happening now is that people are questioning the system, because most people and many countries are not happy with the fact that the US is at the back of everything, because this put them in a situation of being dependent on the US. So yeah, it's a bit crazy, but I'm just happy that we are here now, because we are seeing things happen that are very important and that will probably shape the way of the monetary form of the world in the next 20-30 years. Of course, it could have been maybe more interesting to be alive in the 90s. 90, not alive, but thriving in the 90s, because everything was growing and everything was fun. But I guess that at the end of this period of uncertainty, we will again, find the capital to start growing again, which is where we are lacking at the moment.
So would you say there's even an opportunity or a scenario in which we actually return to some sort of a backing or standard like we used to have gold standard? Of course, later we'll speak about the role of Bitcoin in this, but considering the position of the governments nowadays towards Bitcoin in particular, let's say, Roman, what do you think? Like, is there, really thinking about all these challenges and issues that the global economies are going through, the incredible amount of debt that it's out there, the ever present inflation, do you think maybe in our lifetimes are we gonna shift into some different model, different system? What's your view on this?
Yeah, I think we are on this path right now, since we have Bitcoin, for sure. And to be honest, I think it's quite faster as I expected back then. So I know 5 years ago I said, yeah, I'm pretty sure there will be a time where national states like the US will buy Bitcoin. And I said, I think it takes 20 years or so. And now we have a strategic Bitcoin reserve. I know, in fact, it's not happen right now, and probably it will never find a way to a law. But imagine this some years ago, that the USA say, hey, we need a strategic Bitcoin reserve, and we will never sell the Bitcoin. All the not sell agreements are only for state infrastructure like military programs or nuclear programs and so on. So they literally made Bitcoin a part of national security. This is crazy. And we have this right now. So 15 years before I expected this. And I'm bullish as fuck for Bitcoin. So maybe we will see the shift faster as we expect this. But I'm very... So I don't know if I wish this, because in the end, this would be a very fundamental change of our life. And this will bring new problems, especially when this is going very fast. Because all the ways we do the financial today, or we fund our police, or I don't know, you know what I mean? need to change immediately. And I think it will take a lot of time to find real prices on the free market. Others argue, yeah, better it's a very radical, fast way, because if it's slowly, it become more dangerous, and if it's fast, yeah, it's one time hard, but then it will be better very fast. I'm not pretty sure. If we see the history, all these large things which happened to our society brought a lot of problems, and a lot of people died or died by starving or so on. We will see. I think Bitcoin has a possibility to make something like a flat landing, because we have a slowly but gradually switch to the Bitcoin standard, and maybe the debt in the system will becoming lower and lower over time, and the system will becoming more healthy over the time. But yeah, I don't know what in the future will happen. So I hope for the humans, for the society, that the damage of the fiat system is not that large. But I think maybe it has to be large that people realize they need Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's basically what. Sorry, just one point, because that's what Roman was saying there. Making the system more healthy. Yeah, it's basically recapitalizing the system, because at the moment we have no capital, or I mean, there is a lot of capital, of course, but we don't have enough capital to cover for all the debt that we accumulated through the fiat system. So yeah, we need to capitalize ourselves again, and that's why we see gold. That's why we see Bitcoin. And yeah, if you come to a situation or to a position where we have enough capital, then we can start building again.
Yeah, that sounds to me honestly a little scary. Like when I'm listening to you both, like it might sound really like a global revolution, that might end up in a very, very nasty way. But really, fingers crossed. But the additional question on that, then, are we actually shifting to a Bitcoin standard? What's your gut feeling? I mean, yes, we're Bitcoiners. We believe that that's the right technology. Let's put it this way, that can resolve a lot of these problems. But is it going to be Bitcoin, or do you think the states might come up with some other, competitive solution for this problem?
Well, I do see the governments and the states in general being learning, of course. I mean, because when we think of when we try to assess the situation in the world, you think of what is happening today, and you just extrapolate what's happening today to the future. But of course that doesn't work, because the people today are in the same situation as you, and they also make these assessments, and they also think of ways to improve themselves and to change themselves. Like this is very interesting, for instance, in the case of Europe, because you see Europe has been very, very bad making decisions over the past 15 years, maybe something like that. They've made probably the worst decisions ever. And if you were like 1 year ago thinking of, okay, where is Europe going? 1 year ago, I would have said, well, the EU is going to disappear like in 2 or 3 years, because I mean, it's impossible to do this thing worse. And at some point they're just going to implode, because it's unsustainable. But then you come to this year, and Trump made a lot of changes, and you see Europe now kind of like awakening a little bit to the situation and to the problems that they have, and thinking of, okay, this is really stupid. Let's make like really good decisions and change this the way things are going. And this, I think, is important to understand, because when you think that Bitcoin is going to become a standard or a standard backing the system, which I think is more likely than Bitcoin being the money itself, this could happen, of course. But if this is to happen, it will take probably way more than what we realize, because the system itself has a lot of protections and has a lot of ways to improve, to not dissolve, to not evaporate, right? And I think they will try to maintain the system and to grow with the system, and to use Bitcoin probably also to grow without changing the system, without eliminating the system. And and this of course makes the Bitcoin part a bit more difficult to predict, because I think Bitcoin will be very important. Like I see it, like in the case of strategy has found this way of using it as backing for their credit, and I see Bitcoin becoming this, and eventually at some point, of course, it could be this, but for the whole world. But in the meantime, I see that the system itself will find ways to continue growing without imploding, and this could take ages.
Mm-hmm. And do you see any possibility of returning to the gold standard? I mean, like we've seen in the last 1 or 2 years, actually, gold has been again growing very dramatically. Partially, it's you could say that it's because of the recent political or geopolitical tensions, the uncertainty, and historically, gold has been always the safe haven. When people and the markets were scared, they were trying to find the asset that kind of protects the value, in the longer run. What would be, so do you think we could eventually get back to the golden standard, or like what would be the role of gold in the future compared to the position it has currently against Bitcoin? And we know that there's a lot of fights between these two camps.
Yeah, for the first, I'm absolutely with you, Alberto. I think the system change will be probably very slow, and Bitcoin is the solution in the end, but not as maybe the one or other Bitcoin maximalist thinks how Bitcoin this will be. It's more like the Trojan horse of freedom, and it takes a lot of time. I think people buying gold right now because they believe gold will bring the solution Bitcoin is, but in fact it's not. And when they realize they have to switch to Bitcoin, or they will becoming more poor and poor and poor in comparison to a Bitcoiner. And this is the point we have in the last 5 or 10 years. So the last time 1 ounce of gold and 1 Bitcoin were at the same price was 2017. And both were at $1,000 in 2017. Where's gold right now? Let me check very quick. Gold
5,000.
price, 5,200. Okay, it's a 5x since 2017. And in Bitcoin, we are right now
a bit more than 5,000.
Check this. I have it here. Yeah, it's 71,000. So it's a 71x. If you are a gold bug, you're becoming a very poor guy compared to a Bitcoiner if you store your wealth in gold instead of Bitcoin in the last, I don't know, these are 9 years right now. And I would say the reason why Bitcoin will continue this way on the long run is that Bitcoin is the way more hard asset and way more easy to transfer, and way more easy to check how many Bitcoin are at exchanges. What's the market price really, and not in the problem situation with the Oracle problem and so on. Mm-hmm. So I think this will continue, and in the end, I'm pretty sure gold will be very small compared to Bitcoin and the market cap when we in something like the Bitcoin standard in, I don't know, 20 or 30 years or so. But this is also a switch which is very slowly, and I think this will take a lot of time, because the people believe gold is here for 5,000 years and this will continue, but they don't realize that information and the way information going from person to person is very different compared to 5,000 years ago. I mean, we had a time there were information that fast how horses run, and now we have information which is in a fraction of a second on the other side of this planet. So in this situation, gold is too slow, and the too slow information to be not dependent on central institutions and so on. So Bitcoin can all this, and this will make Bitcoin the better asset in the end. I'm pretty sure it's for this information speed made.
One of the things that I've been thinking over the past few months, with this gold rally, it's actually something like what Roman was saying, that people buying gold today would probably realize that this wasn't the best idea in the future. And what I find funny about this situation is that well, the fact that the reason why the gold went up this much was, of course, the continuous purchasing by the central banks. So central banks are deciding to buy gold, and then they're doing this nonstop at every price, and of course the price is going up. So people thinking that gold is the best thing are basically, taking advice from central bankers, which are like probably the worst people you can go for advice when it comes to like investment stuff. So it's like, okay, so you're basically following the advice of your central banker to put the money on. So I mean, to me it makes no sense. But of course, I mean, the gold is great and has done many things, and it would probably, I don't know if it's going to be 20 years, it could be 10, it could be 30, it could be 50 years. But yeah, at some point, just the fact that the gold is what it is, as Roman said, and Bitcoin is what it is, this will make a difference. But yeah, I just found funny the central bank thing, because I don't know, it's hilarious.
I guess the big benefit of gold is that,
what do we do when central banks buy Bitcoin?
That's exactly what I wanted to. That's exactly what I wanted to get. Right. I mean, we actually here in Prague, as you know, the central bank of Czech Republic has been playing with Bitcoin. So there's always this first canary in the mine. So let's see where that goes. And I'm really wondering. Alberto, imagine, to your point, that taking investment recommendations from central banks or central bankers is kind of a questionable approach. Let's put it this way. But what if the central banks start really, I would say, endorsing Bitcoin to a point when they would recommend Bitcoin as the new gold, basically? Like, would you still be against it?
I am not sure they can do it, to be honest. This would change the way central bankers are, in a way, like for instance, in the guy from Prague, I made a video on him, and this is a guy who's like very different to the normal central bankers. Like this is a guy, like with the rock T-shirts and stuff like that. So it's kind of a guy that is okay. He's the central bank guy, but I mean, he's a different kind of central banker.
He's special.
Yeah, he's a bit special. So by the time central banks do get interested in Bitcoin, it will be because the central bankers that we have are completely different. Like for instance, in the US, the new guy, probably new guy, Kevin Walsh, he is. I I wouldn't say he's a Bitcoiner, but he understands Bitcoin and he sees value in Bitcoin, and he's like he's an in between. So he's not like the special guy from Prague, but he's not Jerome Powell that doesn't know what Bitcoin is and doesn't care. So this guy is a bit in between. It's like this transition kind of thing, and by the time central banks do decide, if they do decide, to do this, it will be because there are so many of these new central bankers that it's not a problem for them to talk or to speak about Bitcoin in a way that doesn't get them cancelled. Because at the moment you cannot be seriously talking about Bitcoin. Like we saw it like recently in Davos. There was this central bank guy from France, and he was discussing with Brian Armstrong from Coinbase. He was making these comments about Bitcoin being a good asset and all that. Very, very like the guy was being like very normal, and the central banker from France was like laughing his ass off, like this is really stupid, like so naive. And of course, I mean, it still sounds very naive, the Bitcoin idea in these arenas. So it's in this sense, it's a bit early, because I mean, imagine going to the central bank of any country and talking about Bitcoin. People are going to be looking at you like you're crazy. So you cannot do it, and because you cannot do it, of course, then this conversation goes nowhere. And until that changes, then this will not happen.
And do you think this will change? Because ultimately, it feels like that Bitcoin is really the competition to, and it is competition to national fiat money and eventually central banks, right? So what do you think would need to happen actually for the markets really to switch into this new mode? I mean, like speaking to central banks about Bitcoin, they're laughing at you until they're not, right? Until really, imagine just like Trump came and, he said like, well, or basically his government, allowed for example, the float of Bitcoin-backed spot ETFs, right? Which is people wouldn't even dream of that. So until someone really comes, someone important and influential with global clout, let's say like, hey, well, actually, Bitcoin, yes, let's put it into the reserve. Let's kind of integrate it into the economy and all that. So what do you think would need to happen, Roman, or what would be the tipping point or the inflection point actually for Bitcoin really to not be the joke of the central bankers, but something that they would take really seriously? And then additional question on that, isn't actually Bitcoin then a threat for the governments because they might lose a tremendous amount of power, which is the access to the money printer?
You mean they're in fear of Bitcoin and this is why they buy Bitcoin? I'm not pretty sure. I think they have the same problem like all people have with fiat money. So it's devaluing and I mean, they want that for sure, but they also want it slower than other countries because.
So you're saying that the central banks are aware of the fact that the money printer is actually destroying the value of the currencies, and they want to do something
about it. Some of them, yeah, for sure. I mean, we have at the EZB one German person. It's Isabel Schnabel, and 2 years ago, so she said, maybe we were wrong. We should look a little bit more on the amount of money we created. So this was it was a huge change because all the years before, especially in the COVID phase, were like, the amount of money is not important for inflation. That's not the point. And I think some of them realize this, and probably they realize they need to be very careful. I mean, this is the reason why Jerome Powell want high interest rates. I'm not pretty sure if they believe in hard money, because they say when we create new money, you buy some stuff with that, and this leads in a growing economy, so we have no problem. and this is probably true if all the debt is paying back, but we know this will not happen, and this is a problem. But so there's another problem, and this is if your currency is devaluing faster than the next large one currency, especially, for example, China or the BRICS nations, then you need a good reason for the people coming back to your system. And I think this is also the reason why we see what we see right now with Iran, with Venezuela, and so on, because I think now the US is still the military power number one and the largest economy, but they realize this is declining over the years. And if we continue like we did before, it was the longest time, our time, and maybe we are not the number one. And we use our power now. We have to show the world, better you switch to the dollar. We are still the power nation. But if this is not the case, or this will not work on the long run, they need another solution. And if you realize what Bitcoin is, you probably realize this is the one and only asset you can compare our system to another system without anyone can lie. So Bitcoin is the best high score you have, because how many Bitcoin China can buy? I'm pretty sure it's not more than 21 million. So this is the limit, right? So there's a absolute limit. And in the end, you have maybe two national states like US and China, and if the one has 1 million Bitcoin, the other one has 2 million Bitcoin, the whole world sees why do you can't buy more Bitcoin than the US? What's the problem? Huh? So I think this is maybe a solution which is coming up because fiat currencies are competing with each other, and you need a good solution. You need the best asset behind it, and this is probably not only your economy, not only your military power, because you probably don't want to fight each other, because this would lead in a tremendous war with a lot of damage for both sides.
Yeah, I guess just to add something to that, the situation at the moment is that there's not a consensus. I mean, of course, in here we have a consensus, but outside of this, the three of us, there's no consensus that Bitcoin is going to be, the best asset ever. If this was a consensus already, everybody will be buying Bitcoin. The thing is that at the state or at the government level, the moment 2 or 3 realize that this could be the case, then everybody will have to buy, because it's the prisoner's dilemma. Like at the moment, only El Salvador is doing it, and a few like smaller things, small countries. Maybe Bhutan is not doing it, but it's mining at least. So it doesn't really count. But if you have a country doing this for sure and doing this for real, then you have to think, okay, if the system is going to use this capital and it's now freely available and I can get some of it, why wouldn't I, if this other guy is doing it and is, getting a better deal for their money? Like, I mean, it's the reason why we had the treasury companies going crazy this summer. Like you had a strategy doing this from 2020. You gave it like 4 or 5 years of like, okay, let's see what happens with this. And then 4 or 5 years later, you see that the company is not only surviving but thriving, and then everybody is like, okay, let's do this thing. And this was only after 5 years. So I'm thinking like maybe in 2 or 3 years, if a strategy continues to do its thing, then we will see a massive amount of new companies thinking, okay, not only this is interesting, maybe I want to keep some of my capital in this thing instead of in treasuries. So yeah, this is what happens. And the thing is, building the consensus is what takes time.
Excellent. And then that brings me also to the other question, which is pretty closely related to this. And some people argue, and I think you also, Roman, mentioned that democracy is kind of a broken system. Some people say that it's the best system we have, and there's no better alternative. But do you think actually that if there's this Bitcoin standard, if we live in Bitcoin standard, there is can it actually coexist with democracy? Wouldn't it kind of break the whole system because of all the implied issues that it brings?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. Sorry, I'm just gonna go here because it's one of the reasons why I like Bitcoin. I mean, what made it like really a passion for me was the fact that this could be something that made out of sense for a majority of people, because the majority of people don't have assets or financial stuff, they have money. And when a crisis hits and the democracy and the government decides, to save everybody, we're going to print money, it hurts this majority of people that who only have savings in money, And to me, this is super unfair, and this is why I like Bitcoin, and why I think everybody should be having some Bitcoin just to protect themselves, because the solution to all the problems is usually this printing. And of course, the reason why we have these solutions is because democracy works this way. And if you want to get to win votes and to get re-elected, then you need the economy and everything to more or less flow. And we know that if you just put more money in the economy, the thing flows. You increase GDP, even though everybody's poorer, but the GDP is higher. So it's like, okay, as long as GDP grows, everything is good, even though the majority of people cannot buy a house or whatever. That's okay, but GDP is going up. So that's the problem with democracy. And I am not a fan. You said maybe Roman doesn't like it, or kind of doesn't like it. I don't like it. I'm more of a... I love dictators. The thing with the dictators have a bad rap. But I mean, you don't need to have a bad dictator. It could be a good dictator. And ideally, if you have... thousands of them, then you can choose, like, okay, if in Europe there were 1,000 dictators, then you don't like yours, then you go to the next one in the next province, just like 100 kilometers from your place. And maybe it's much better over there. It's the theory from Rothbard and Hoppe, I think, is the one that talked about the 1,000 Europes, 1,000 Liechtensteins. So, of course, this would be ideal, and Bitcoin does work much better with that. But what is interesting of Bitcoin plus democracy is that if you have Bitcoin plus democracy and you make it work, then you could use Bitcoin to stop the democracy from being stupid, which is interesting, because the moment you cannot print money, then you cannot really do stupid things, because the problem with democracy is that you do stupid things for the votes, instead of doing the right things because you have to. When you don't have money flying around, then maybe you just do what you have to do, and probably the government doesn't expand, and probably the government doesn't grow. And if at the end of the day you have a government that is a few people in charge of the country existing and some of the military or whatever, I could live with that. But I think the reason why democracy becomes so problematic is because you pair it with fiat money, and that's a crazy combo.
Would you agree, Roman?
Yeah, kind of. Maybe I need to be careful what I say because I live in Germany. And
we'll block the video for German users.
And the democracy is in a very, very late state, so probably I need to be careful. I think in Germany we have one problem. So we have 15 million tax players, which paying taxes in the netto. So you have way more tax payers, but these are all people which indirectly get the money from the 15 million tax players. So like people working for the state, they're paying taxes, but they got paid from the people which paid the taxes before with their work. And
I love that.
we have 50 million voters. So the democracy is the power of the majority over the small amount people of the society, and this leads to the people voting for the money the smaller group earns. And I'm pretty sure they never vote against their own interests. And this ends in the people which are creating the wealth are not the power which can vote what will, or which party or which politician can make decisions for this money. And the system will going maybe it will crack a little bit over the years. And so after, I don't know, 40, 50 years, it's totally destroyed in a system which full of leechers, which leeching the money the smaller group is earning. And yeah, this is probably the situation in Germany. And this, I'm pretty sure Bitcoin can save the money from the hardworking people. And maybe in the end, it can save the society and the national state as well. But I'm not pretty sure about this because it's not only fiat money the problem. I think the system itself is born to lead in a very strange system in the end. So even if the money system changes,
there's a nice thought experiment. I think it was Sam Harris, which is like very progressive for him to say this, or maybe he wasn't. But yeah, there's a thought experiment that explains this dynamic of the system being broken. And if you think, imagine that the world was just one country at the moment. So you get rid of all the countries, and there's only one country, and there's a democracy, and there's an election next Sunday to decide who's going to be ruling, and you go to to vote, and of course. What happens is that because there are a majority of people live in Southeast Asia, they will win the elections. And of course, the first thing they will do is like, okay, there's a lot of money in the West. This is very, very unbalanced. So we need to get all this money from the West and bring it here because, of course, we are now in power, and we need to get money from these guys that are at the other side of the world with these few people with this money, and bring it here where we have this amount of people with fewer money. And this is basically what happens at every democracy. But when you see it at the planetary level, it kind of like makes sense. It's a nice thought experiment because it's very like you visualize it and you're like, okay, yeah, for sure, this is what will happen.
There was a time frame in Germany back then when we won the war against the Roman Empire in the Teutoburger Wald, and this was called Germanian democracy. So you had a lot of smaller groups in Germany. So you had not one big politics. You had a fraction of politics everywhere. And it was kind of like a democracy because the leaders of all these fractional groups voted for one bigger leader. And these people could vote, which had a lot of honor and so on. So they won fights or did great stuff for their societies. And so the society said, yeah, you are the most powerful man here, so please decide for us. And this was a system which won the fight against the Roman Empire, which is quite crazy because the Roman Empire said, yeah, the Germans are just this furious Germanicus, just crazy people destroying everything. But in fact, we won the war. And so if you compare this to today, it would be like only people which are working with a net tax-paying job are allowed to vote, for example. So it's not that I'm sitting here and say, I wish this system, but it's compared to the time back then. And imagine how would the election would be if you have a voting system like this, where you say, yeah, only if you go to work and you are not people working for the state, you are just someone working with your own hands, getting money on, okay, the state is taking the taxes, but only in this case, you are allowed to vote. Yeah, I think we had a pretty different political situation in all countries, right?
Good luck with that.
Yeah,
I mean, I wanted to say
it will never happen. Yeah, but this is what I say. This will never happen, and this will probably not change.
I don't see them voting for this.
The majority will not allow this, right? So they will say, we don't want that. And this is a reason why we never change the system how it's now. And probably even Bitcoin is not the solution for this. Just a tool for the individuals to save their money. So the state cannot print more Bitcoin. But I'm not pretty sure if Bitcoin is a part of the solution or a part of the democracy in the end. So I think states will need Bitcoin to show their power to other states and to compare each other. As I mentioned, Bitcoin as a high score value or so. But I'm pretty sure, and I'm also sure some systems will repair under Bitcoin because maybe the national states realize, with all the social systems we have, we cannot earn more money than another country. So if we want to raise our high score, we should have a look at where we spend our money for. But this will take decades of years. So I don't know, 50 years or so.
But something that might not actually change or take actually that much time is the technology, right? So if you look at what we've been experiencing since the launch of the LLMs in the last couple of years, and the incredible, almost exponential progress, every day or every other day you hear a new crazy story about what the technology can do. So in the future, and I know many people were talking about it, that the AI, I mean, can and the technology itself can actually bring abundance, massive productivity gains, deflation, and basically people will not potentially need money anymore. Do you think this is the case? What would be also the role of Bitcoin in such a world if we live in this fantasy scenario where really, we have abundance of everything?
Please let me answer this.
There you go, Roman.
You will always need money. So society without money is just an utopia. It's not possible. Like, I think Star Trek is kind of a communist system, right? So no one is going to work. Everyone just doing for fun. Yeah, let's
exactly
explore the universe. And if you need something, just press a button and it's coming out of a machine, out of nothing. I don't know. That's ridiculous, stupid. I mean, I would go there and say, please make me 10 million T right now. So what will happen? So you need a limit on this.
This only demonstrates that Star Wars is better than Star Trek.
For sure, absolutely. but in the end, you will always need money. Even if an AI-driven world need something like a value comparison tool, like how if an AI creates the own AI chips and develop the own AI chips and buying the energy for powering the own infrastructure, or even if they go to mine and dig some metal or so, they need to know how many of all this. So they need to know how many resources I need to collect now, and this is money. So you find this answer in money. Money will send the signals always. So we will never have a society without money. It's not possible. And I know there are some people which think this is possible, but it's in fact not. And the history of humanity will teach us this. I'm pretty sure Bitcoin is the best money for this because it's the only fixed amount of money we have. So it's the best comparison. Like, look at this one here. Yeah. This is a fiat money. You will buy a house, yeah, and you go with this one here, and you measure how long should the house be, and you measure this, and on the next day you're coming there, and this is making this one, and you say, what the fuck has happened? I mean, I put this here yesterday, and now it's totally crazy. So how can I get the money for all this? And Bitcoin is always this. It's always fixed, right? So this is the best money we have, and this is the best reason why AI will choose Bitcoin in the end. So they don't need a KYC or so, but they also have the best the best value base for all this mathematics they do to know how many resources they need and so on.
Well,
nowadays it feels like it depends on which AI model you ask, but that's a different story.
This is a case when companies run the AI model because they can do the KYC. But what will happen if AI is independent? Maybe someday. So they will need something like a money to do all this stuff, right?
Yeah, I don't really agree there because. It comes back to what I was saying before, because you have Bitcoin that can move value through space, but you also have stable coins that can move value through space, and you have, of course, Visa, who also moves value through space, and they all have systems that can be connected to AI, and at the end, it needs to be. So you need to conduct business in a currency that both of them accept. And the majority of people don't accept Bitcoin at the moment. So if you have AIs plugged into a system and trading with themselves, they will most likely try to settle in dollars than in Bitcoin, because they both understand dollars and they both have dollars, and they probably have lords masters that tell them dollars is what we want. And they will probably not choose Bitcoin. But I agree with what you're saying, that Bitcoin is much better for this, but again, you need to have more people in Bitcoin for this to become, I think, the currency of choice. At the AI level, I mean, I still am hopeful. Like I'm hopeful that what Roman was saying is what actually happens, because I think that, I mean, Bitcoin has so many advantages. It is like zero latency. You can do infinite through Lightning, so it's no fees. Whereas in all these other systems, you have either fees, you have some latency. So they are not perfect. They are better than the current system, of course, but they are not perfect. The only perfect thing in this case would be Bitcoin. But again, not at the moment, because even if you try to do this with Lightning, it wouldn't work with everybody trying to trade against themselves. And there's one more thing going against the stable coins, which I didn't mention before, which is the fact that Tether, for instance, freezes something like 100 or 200 million per day. So I mean, that is always a risk, that you may be doing business with I don't know who, and then Tether decides that this money is not yours, and this is not a risk with Bitcoin. So this is what makes Bitcoin the best thing, but still it is the best thing, but not many people understand that this is the best thing. And of course, the machines may understand it, but if they're told not to use it, then they will not use it.
Let me answer to this, because if you look how AIs work, they have something like substitutional languages. For example, an AI is not translating from German to Spanish, and they're not translating from German to English to Spanish. They're translating from German to a an own language, which can be symbols and stuff like that. And from this language, they can go to all other languages. And this is the reason why they speak stuff like slang and so on.
Yeah.
So they're working like this. And if you replace languages with monetary systems or with currencies, then you see they will not switch from euro to US dollar and from US dollar to yuan. They will switch from euro to an own substitutional monetary system where we can where they can do all the math with, the mathematics with, and from this one they go to yuan and everything else. So and the question is, which one is a substitutional base layer for all this information they need and they need to create? And so they can create an own currency, but this has too low market value and it's not stable. So I'm pretty sure this one will in the end Bitcoin. So this was what I thought about. And I think stablecoins are more the currency they use in the end to pay something if they're allowed to, because as you said, Tether could burn them or can say you are not allowed to use this. But this is the reason why I think they will hold Bitcoin, to not have this risk and to have the better base layer for do all the mathematics, and then they go to other currencies and swap this into resources and so on.
It is what Strike did initially, which I don't know if they're doing this any longer, but it's what they did when they were sending money. They were like dollars to Bitcoin somewhere else, and then Bitcoin to whatever, Yeah. I mean, it does make sense. I just don't know if Bitcoin is at that stage, that they could accommodate, hundreds of thousands of transactions this way.
AI is not at the state right now as well. I mean, we have no real sovereign AI out
growing
there,
really fast.
Yeah, they do. But Bitcoin, I think as well, I don't think we see this at the price. But if you realize how far Bitcoin get in the last years, if you realize there are Bitcoin spot ETFs, and this is the most successful ETF of all times, this is kind of crazy, right? So yeah, most people don't realize this right now, and this makes me even more bullish, because if they realize this, what will happen to Bitcoin then? So it's still a small thing, and it's the most successful spot ETF, and we have national states talking about Bitcoin. Yeah, everything on a small level right now, but it's pretty fast, to be honest. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's as you said, it's crazy that some of these developments, it sometimes feels like it happens overnight, and then we are living the future that we never even thought of, let's say 2, 3, 5 years ago, which is really crazy. Anyway, gentlemen, I have one final question, and it's also a very short one. How do you think the world would look like if Bitcoin hits $1 million? Alberto.
My world or the world?
How the world, your world? I know how your world would look like. But what would be the implications? Because just the background of the question. Because naturally, people keep on looking at the charts, waiting for the price to hit the new all-time highs and all that. Would it be just the price action, or do you see at those levels it would have fundamental implications on economy, on central banks, on regulators, on retail, anyone else, the whole world in general?
Yeah, it's a good question when you frame it in comparison to what we've seen in the past few years, because when you were saying that, I was thinking, well, how is it different today, or I don't know, 2 months ago when it was at 100,000, to what it was when it was like 10,000, which was 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So how much has it changed, and how much has it changed? Really, I mean, I don't really know, because you could say, well, what has changed is that it went from being something discussed in Twitter between a few guys and stuff like that to the US president talking about this. Well, that is quite a big change, when you put it in this perspective, or it went from something that you accumulate as a guy to something that companies accumulate as companies and countries accumulate as countries. So if this goes to 1 million, what I'd say is that, well, everybody's talking about this, not just the US president, but everybody, and probably it is. Or maybe not. Maybe what happens is that if when it goes to 1 million, nobody talks about it because it's already like so common that it's not a big thing. It's in every bank has the opportunity to offer some Bitcoin stuff. It's backing a lot of things. It's so ingrained in the economy that it's not really that big of a thing. And then in that case, I have to change the name of the podcast. But but yeah, that could be the case actually. That could be what happens.
Mm-hmm. It's just like people used to say that it's like electricity, right? When it was invented, everybody was talking about it. Now you don't have too many podcasts about electricity.
You have
so Roman,
now,
what's your view?
Because it's a political political vehicle right now to talk about electricity, and now you can create it on the most stupid way. But yeah.
So Roman, what's your take on this 1 million mark?
I think a lot of people will say, "Oh no, it's too late," like they say it always. But a lot of people also realize, okay, maybe it's never too late, and it's better to jump on right now. Also, I think most companies, most banks, most ETFs, and so on are backed by a small amount of Bitcoin. And I think we had these numbers are not the current numbers, but I think it was at 100K or so. And we calculated if you only have 1% of all the state funds going to Bitcoin at this point, we had a nearly 5x or so. So what will happen when Bitcoin is at 1 million? So the most of this one are backed by Bitcoin a little bit, a small amount. I don't know, some person. And this person will also show a development of increasing your monetary power and so on, and they realize from time to time that they need more of this. So it will be a standard maybe to buy Bitcoin, like today a lot of companies buy gold, and this in the end will make Bitcoin to the best saving money or saving monetary network we always had. And this will be normalizing in the heads of the people. Like you said, we don't talk about this then anymore. I had this, I was at the bank some weeks ago, and he asked me, Roman Reher, you want to buy some of our own products and look what we invest in your money. So there's a lot of tech stuff and AI stuff, and look here, it's good electricity stuff inside, and we have 15% gold inside. And I was really wondering that they are putting gold inside, because this is not where they put money, I don't know, 10 years ago or so. And maybe the case is in when Bitcoin hits $1 million, that all these banks have products where Bitcoin is in, and they say, look, you can bring a little bit money to the economy, and maybe you outperform Bitcoin and everything, but you should store a little bit of your money in Bitcoin, 15% or so. I think this will normalize the investment in Bitcoin, and everybody will realize Bitcoin is not the money for criminals and so on. And I'm more curious about the time frame when we hit 1 million per Bitcoin, because I think when we go to 200K, maybe we see a correction again, or when we hit 500K. So how fast will this go? Because it cannot go too fast. When it's going too fast, it will decrease at the same speed, as fast, like it's rising. So when will this moment be where we have a stable $1 million per Bitcoin price?
Well, we'll see. I mean, as Yogi Berra said, it's difficult to make forecasts, especially about the future. So let's see when this time comes. Anyway, gentlemen, it's been a really tremendous pleasure having you here on the channel. Thank you very much for your time. I really enjoyed our discussion, and I really hope to see you soon somewhere. Have a great one, and take care.
Likewise.
Thank you.